everyone, and welcome to a brand new spoiler review episode of the Geek Buddies. We are in transition right now with these new graphics, new videos. There will be a Geek Bites video coming very soon.
You gotta stop. You gotta stop. Every time you start these videos, you're like, let me tell you, it's not ready yet. It's gonna be ready. Like, just let them be surprised. Just
okay, fair point. Just want to make this surprised again. This is a Geek Bite episode of the Geek Bites, Geek Buddies normal show here. We are doing a spoiler review for The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4. I am John Rocha. You are
Michael Vogel. This is how you can tell, John. This is how you can tell the poor outlaw does a lot of podcasts, guys. He's podcasting all day. So when you get him in the morning, he's hot. He's hot. But when you get him in the afternoon, hey, I'm John Rocha. This is Mike Vogel. We're doing some things. It's changing. It's a Geek Bite, but it's a Geek Buddies. I don't know, guys. So anyways, Last of Us.
Here from the
Geek Buddies. Ba-ba-boom.
Hey, right there it is. Yeah, but this is Michael's right. We're recording this at 3:45 in the afternoon. I've had a very long day, but I am very excited to talk about this episode with you, brother, because a lot happened in this one. And this one comes to us from director Mary Harron, who, of course, was the executive producer and directed all the episodes of season 1 of Loki, or 6 episodes, rather, in season 1 of Loki. And this one is called Day One. This is Seattle, basically, and we're also going back and forth in time, getting introduced to the character of Isaac, played by Jeffrey Wright here, which I think is a really powerful character to introduce into the world of The Last of Us. We also have ALANNA UBACH joining the cast here, playing Hanrahan, just getting a little bit of a sample of what she's going to be bringing to the table. But we also get more with Dina and more with Ellie and their journey, and it really does end up in a place that some people expected it to end up in, with their attraction for each other and sort of their feelings for each other being played out, but then some revelations about Dina's pregnancy, about Ellie's immunity, and some wonderful moments between them, even though Dina almost killed Ellie. So a lot to talk about in this particular episode. So, Michael, what were your thoughts overall on this episode of The Last of Us?
My thoughts were Dina went through it.
Yes,
Dina went through it this week. It was great. Here's my thoughts. One, my plan for trying to stay ahead of the show as I play the game just blown out the window, because this episode just rocketed ahead from where I was at, and kind of leapt over a lot of the early exploring Seattle when you get there, and got right into the meat of it. But I texted last night. My thoughts were, I started this episode and we kind of eased in and we're exploring Seattle. And I was like, after episode 2 had so many infected, we haven't seen a lot of the infected lately. And then like 20 minutes later, I texted to everybody and I was like, nope, I'm good. It was too much. It was too intense. Like, this episode had a little bit of everything. I think it had some really lovely quiet moments, some really beautiful quiet moments, some big reveals with the introduction of Isaac and kind of diving into the WLF and the scars and everything going on between them. And then you had like some seriously intense infected action there in the middle. I mean, basically from the moment that Dina and Ellie kind of broke in to the WLF compound, the news station, and basically were live action reenacting a stealth mission from a video game in the most intense way possible, into the subway station, into the infected stuff. That was intense. I mean, even for me, who is no Shannon McClung, I was on the edge of my seat and very stressed out. And then you end with like this really beautiful character stuff between Ellie and Dina. So I thought this was great. I thought everything was handled beautifully. I thought it was a really lovely queer love story. I think kind of placing it in the Capitol Hill section of Seattle and doing what they did there was really lovely as well. Like, I just thought it was great. I thought Jeffrey Rush was great. It just still reconfirmed every week that I watch this show and I'm like, fuck, how is this show actually this good?
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say I enjoyed the show as well. I liked the slow lead in to where we were going. I liked the introduction of Isaac because I love Jeffrey Wright, and seeing his journey, right? Because this is a 10-year journey shown in a bunch of scenes here of where he's going from the beginning when he's part of Fedra. and we have Josh Peck of all people telling a pretty shitty joke there in the transport, in essence, and then him turning on them all and destroying them so he can go off with the WLF. And by the time we catch up with him and Hanrahan later on in the show, he is now the leader, in essence, of the WLF. They are in this fight with the Scars people who we saw introduced in the last episode. We find out they're called the Seraphites. And so we see that the groundwork being laid for that, which I think is really interesting. And the idea of, well, what the Seraphites versus the WLF, and is the WLF becoming Fedra, and the tribalism and all this kind of stuff that's going on. But then on the other side, you see what happens when two people can come together who do care for each other, put down their talk about their differences, reveal their secrets to each other, and they find a strong connection with each other, which I think was fantastic to see. So well directed, the action and the intimate moments here by Mary Herron, you know.
I guess that, you know what, I think that's what really struck me, is that a lot of times when we talk about these shows, we'll have whether it's Bert and Birdie with Hawkeye or whatever, we'll have those directors where we're like, they do great action. And then we'll have those directors that they're like, they do great intimate moments.
Right. Yes.
But when you get an episode like this, where you're like, the intimate moments were intimating, but the action moments were actioning. Like everything was doing what it was supposed to do. And it was just like a thrill, like just the way that it sort of whiplashed back and forth, like an episode that can have Ellie play guitar and sing maybe the sweetest version of Take On Me I've ever heard in my life.
Sure.
And you have this moment, and in the exact same episode, you have them crawling through that fucking train car with infected, like slamming through the window, and like that's the same director bringing you both. Like, it was really, really lovely. It was really well done.
Yeah, and I do see some people pushing back on this stuff and saying like, well, I don't think it's as good as the Joel and Ellie dynamic. But the thing is, remember, that took a little bit of time to establish itself. This is the first or second real episode where we're getting Ellie and Dina. So that's got to kind of blossom into its own thing. And it's not going to be Joel and Ellie, because Joel and Ellie didn't have romantic feelings for each other. Joel and Ellie aren't having a baby. It's a completely different dynamic that you're dealing with now in the show. And I like the switch. I like the change in where it's going. Of course, I miss Pedro, but I like
everyone misses Pedro. But like, I mean, you know what? If you miss him, you're going to see him soon stretching his way into superheroes. So you're good. But no, like, look, I'm not going to argue that Dina and Ellie is just as good as Ellie and Joel. Like, Ellie and Joel is an iconic duo of video games. And even within the gaming community, there's a big debate about whether Last of Us 2 is as good as Last of Us 1. And this is a big reason. I will say that I think that the Ellie Dina relationship in the series, and Dina as a personality and a character in general in the series, is way more interesting and dynamic to me than Ellie and Dina in the game.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think what both of them are doing, and the chemistry between them, and the way that the showrunners have sort of built up this will they won't they dynamic. I mean, obviously we knew they would, but like this like the flirting and the back and forth, and the Ellie not being sure how Dina feels, that we've sort of been doing over the course of the past few episodes. I just think it's been done a lot better. I just am really way more invested in their relationship here than I was in the game.
That's fair. That's fair. I not having played the game, I don't know what it's like in there just yet. But I imagine I won't play until after season 3, because I'm sure there's stuff from the game in season 3 as well. But I can't wait to dive into that one, as I had lots of fun playing the first one. But let's break it down, because there's 2 really big sections, right? It's Isaac, PEDRO, the Wolf, and the Seraphites. So what are your thoughts on how this all went down, Michael? I mean, clearly at the beginning, as I said, he is a guy who's part of Fedra. And if you watch that after mini doc they do with the episode, Jeffrey Wright saying Isaac became disillusioned with Fedra because they became the thing they were fighting. And then you see him, kill the people in there, poor Josh Peck and everything like that. And he's clearly made a decision to work with Hanrahan. We don't know what their background is, or what their conversations were, or what led him to this moment, but he's clearly gone to the other side. And then later we see him in the episode. He is torturing this poor Seraphite there against the wall. Shout out to that actor being willing to put himself in that condition, in that state, fully vulnerable, fully nude there, talking about pans, certain kinds of cooking pans and whatever, which I don't know much about, but I'm sure Lady Outlaw does. But him bringing it, burning him. And it reminded me of The Godfather Part 2. And I'll make this connection because the Seraphite says to him, we're going to win. because every day we're recruiting one member out of your crew, and none of your crew or none of our crew is coming to your crew. And in Godfather Part 2, Michael realizes that the rebels are going to win because the rebels are willing to die themselves to defeat the people who are in charge of Cuba at the time, rather than the people who are in charge of Cuba at the time, you know, getting rebels to come join them. So it's an interesting situation. How did you think overall, I guess specifically and overall, what did you think of these storylines, how they played out here in the
episode? Well, first, you put Jeffrey Wright in anything and it's great.
Yes, agreed.
I mean, the man is amazing. The man is so good. And what's interesting is so a lot of, you know, we've in Last of Us season 1 and 2, like they've taken a lot of the actors and actresses who did the voices of different characters in the game and given them cameos or given them small roles. But Jeffrey Wright played Isaac in the game.
Yes. Right. Yes.
And so he's the first one who he played Isaac. He did the voice of Isaac back in the game, and now he has aged into the role where he actually is the right age. So they were like, yeah, if we got Jeffrey Wright, we're going to use him. We talk about this a lot, but I love a scene that is expedient in its in what it is setting out to do. Yeah. And this opening scene just nails it, that you see these Fedra soldiers telling the story, and you see that even though at one point Fedra was ostensibly there to protect humanity, that is not how things have gone. Right. And the way that and I love the reveal of, like, he's telling this whole story. You don't know Jeffrey Wright is there. You don't know he's there until you cut to him, and he basically is like, yeah, this is why we called them voters. It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And so and then he does what he does. He shakes. So him getting out of the truck and not wanting to go just kick their asses because he can.
Right.
And then him shaking the hand, doing the grenade thing, doing the whole thing. You get everything you need to know about this guy. You understand that he did not like the way that Fedra was doing things.
Right.
He did not like the way these soldiers were talking about the people that they were ostensibly there to protect. And he was willing to kill them and side with these people because what the WLF stood for, he thought was right.
Yes.
He thought this was good.
Right.
And so that's a great scene to have, because you understand why he did what he did. And if you don't know the game and you're not sure where things are going, you're like, well, these seem like good people. So that then when you get to him later, you're like, oh, this has really gone bad. And if you're really looking at, and we talked about this a lot in the second episode, particularly with Joel and with Abby, and now the road that Ellie's on, like, Joel at the end of season 1 did something he thought was right.
Yes.
But he did some shitty stuff.
Right.
Abby felt that this guy Joel had done some shitty stuff, thought she was doing what was right, but then look what she became, and the way she killed Joel, and how she let the anger overtake her. And now you have the WLF that thought they were doing right because Fedra was bad, but look at where they went. And this entire show, and you really see these cycles of violence, these cycles of trauma that just keep repeating themselves over and over and over again. And that's why I think this opening scene with Isaac was great, because it set you up. If we had just met Isaac and he had been the bad guy of the WLF, Jeffrey Wright would have killed it. That would have been a great scene regardless. But getting this first scene to see why he made that decision and what he believed then, and then to see what he's become, really hits thematically with what Last of Us is doing, and really makes it more tragic in a way.
What did you think of the scene with him and torturing the Seraphite and everything that happened there?
It's a beautifully written scene. Yeah. You know, and again, in the same way that the opening scene had you with all the soldiers giving you the joke, and they waited before they revealed Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah.
Then you get to this scene and you have Jeffrey Wright doing this whole monologue about copper cookware and how much better it is, and how he always wanted to do fancy cookware because that's how he asked women out and impressed them. And it's this lovely monologue. Yeah. And they don't show you that he's talking to an emaciated, beaten up, naked man until the moment of the reveal. And you sort of understand, we've all seen enough TV shows and we get what this show is. So we kind of knew what was going on, but I still, even knowing more or less what you were going to see, I think saving that reveal was really nice. And then in the whole scene between him and the Scar and the Seraphite, again, and this is Joel and Abby, but just blown up to different people. Like, Joel's like, well, I killed all these people because they were going to do this to Ellie. And then Abby's like, well, I killed you because you did this to my dad. And like, who's right? Who can say?
Right.
And that's the same thing here. The Seraphite is like, well, you broke the treaty. And then he's like, oh, you broke the treaty because we broke the treaty because you broke the treaty because I'm not playing your games. But this is what it is. Like, you end up having these groups of people, and every single one of them is like, well, we're right. And to a degree, the WLF is there to protect the WLF.
Yes.
The scars are protecting their, we saw last week's episode, they're protecting their children, they're protecting their loved ones. Every community that we see here are all trying to protect their own. And even think about in the first episode when Joel was complaining about the number of people they were letting in. Maybe don't let me. So you see how like the way that what has happened to the world and what the infected has done is like even people with the best intentions tend to become tribal.
Right.
I'm going to protect these people and everyone else is the enemy. Everyone else is the monster. And with the scars and the WLF, we're just sort of seeing that play out on a bigger level.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A lot of excellent points there, Michael, for sure. And the topicality of the story, and we're seeing this with Andor, and we're seeing this with The Last of Us. Both of them at the same time are producing their second seasons with episodes and storylines that very much feel ripped from the headlines, very topical. This idea of calling these people whose rights they removed, sarcastically calling them voters. I mean, there's something really unsettling seeing that now with everything that's going on. This possibility. Because why? Because a threat appeared, and all of a sudden, all the civility, all the norms, all the way that things works were ripped away. People in power, people who had power or took power, became the people who dictated who was in charge and who wasn't in charge, and who should be protected and who shouldn't be protected. And then we went to the extreme of the us versus them. And of course, the history since caveman days, it's been us versus them, and that'll always repeat till we're dead, sadly. And you see that, as you said, from where he goes, leaving Fedra, thinking Fedra has violated their codes, their principles, their ethics, because this guy's telling a story about Greenberg, and then people like Greenberg work for Fedra. Well, he goes and joins the WLF because he thinks that's the more idealistic choice. They're doing the right things. I understand now where they're coming from. And then 10 years later, the Seraphite tells him that you are now on the wrong side. Our people are growing because your people are leaving you to join us, just like you left Fedra to join WLF. So you see that, as you said, the cycle is repeating, and it's so fascinating to watch it because you always think you're on the right side, and there's always an us versus them. But it's so much more complicated than that, unfortunately.
It is. And lest we feel too bad for the Seraphite, who is emaciated and dying, look at what the Seraphites do to the WLF. They string them up and disembowel them. So, it is like, this is the state of the world, and the world is not great.
And I like that he said, I'm not going to play your games, like you were pointing out, like the repetition of all this, but in the end, it is the way it's going to go. And it's going to be fascinating to see what Isaac does when he finds out, if he finds out what Abby did, right? Because she violated their rules, just like he was claiming Fedra was violating their federal rules, and that's why he joined the WLF. What will be that situation if he ever finds out about it? I'm going to be real curious to see. And I love ALANNA. Man, bringing in ALANNA UBACH. I mean, this is an actress who I've enjoyed and loved since freaking Beekman's World, for God's sakes. And to see her progress to actress who plays all these fantastic comedic roles like Legally Blonde and the Meet the Parents franchise, and to see her occasionally get to do some drama and show what she can do drama-wise. She was fantastic here, just with the little amount of time.
Just a very, very little bit. And she's a new character that is not from the game. So much like Catherine O'Hara, much like, I believe, but much like Catherine O'Hara, it's like, this is, you bring a great performer in who's really got the chops, and you have this new character that's going to flesh out some parts of the story. It's going to be really exciting to see where that goes.
I agree. Well, let's move over to Ellie and Dina. Let's deal with this situation. Let's deal with everything before the action. So we have them coming into Seattle and surveying everything, exploring everything. We see Dina taking these pregnancy tests, or we assume pregnancy tests, that she's taken off the rack there. And she's a little troubled. We see when they get on the horse, she's a little troubled. But then they have this beautiful moment as they go into this music shop, and she sings, as you mentioned here, Michael, she sings Take On Me, a really beautiful version of Take On Me. And it brought to mind this scene from season 2, where they're kind of having, this is where Ellie is starting to make a connection here with her from season 1. And so this is a fascinating thing to compare the two scenes, and their relationship develops and grows. And then we get into the action scene. So what did you think of how they built all the way up until this moment before the action breaks out between them?
Well, I think a couple things. One, I really enjoyed I just enjoy in general the way that they stay true to the game. Like in the game, you are always running into, grocery stores or anywhere that there's anything, and you raid to try and get different things. And so anytime that they're raiding anything, even though that is very logical and it's what they would do, I always love the way that they have those touch points that you're like, even as we are expanding this world and adding characters and fleshing things out, you still always come back to the fact that the roots of this story, which is the game. And I always appreciate when they do that. But then a difference is setting them coming into Seattle, setting it in Capitol Hill, which is the queer area of Seattle. And I thought what was really great about this, as it wasn't a huge moment, but the fact that these two grew up in a world where they don't know what a pride flag is.
Yes.
Like, they don't know what that is. Like they've been dealing with some shit.
Yeah.
And I was watching another podcast, and they made the comment that, the infection happened in 2003.
Right.
That's when the world stopped. And back in 2003, when George W. Bush was president, the debate on gay marriage was more intense than the current debate on trans athletes. Like, it was wild. Yeah. So it was a very different time for the queer community, which I thought was just an interest. So the fact that Dina and Ellie have grown up in this world where that is not something that was really much talked about, in the same way that Ellie has never been on a plane, which we found out in season 1, like all these little touch points. I just thought it was like placing it where it was and placing this burgeoning love story in this very queer neighborhood that they have no understanding of what it is, was just a really, I thought, artful touch. Yeah. And then getting into the record shop, the music store, look, we're going to get to this later, I'm assuming in flashbacks this season, but Ellie being able to play the guitar, and that being something that she shared with Joel. That Joel taught her how to do. That I think we're going to see a little bit more of later in the season. Like, if you do miss Pedro, don't worry. I do think we got some flashbacks coming up. But I think that the fact that she had this really tender moment where she sang one of my top 10 favorite 80s songs, and that is a connection to Joel. But it also now is a connection to Dina. Also, it's a connection to Riley, her best friend / love interest from season 1, because in the episode where they were in the mall together, Take On Me was playing. It was this great sort of moment that had all of these kind of emotional touch points. And then watching Dina literally get emotional as she was watching it, as she was listening to Ellie sing, like, it was so funny because I just had this moment and this was about the point where I was like, this is great. We haven't seen a lot of infected action in the past 2 episodes, but I think it was because like this little moment in this little bubble was so sweet to me that I was like, if this wasn't a zombie show, I'd be fine. This is great. Yeah. And like I said, like, again, like the fact that there's like the Riley touch point, the obvious Joel touch point, and now the Dina touch point, it just kind of takes all of these key emotional relationships in the series and kind of boils them down to this one really, really tender moment.
Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, I liked them coming into the town, and each of them has a very clear personality of how they do things. One is observer, one takes action much more quickly, right? This is all still kind of new and unsettling for Dina because we don't know how much exposure Dina has had outside of those walls to what is out there. I mean, Abby's been Ellie has clearly experienced much more of the outside world in that journey with Joel, much more reacting to things. So you see a little bit more that she's much more of a immediately, what we got to do, what do we got to do? Dina still is a little, at times, takes a second or two to kind of grasp what's happening before reacting. And you see the differences in their approach, which I like. And then when you get to that moment between them, when she's singing the song, and the song is all about like trying to tell your feelings to this person, and they keep pulling away from you, and you really want to get to them. And I love the touch point, as you said, back to her friend. But then this played by Storm Reed. But this situation here, there's more likely to happen now in what is going forward. And what we're about to find out is, just like with Storm Reed, someone gets bit here when these feelings are being expressed, when these emotions are happening, which I thought was great.
I do think it's so funny because I classify them. I agree that I really enjoy the differences between Dina and Ellie, but I don't know that Dina is as much hold back, take it all in. Like Dina's better at this than Ellie.
Dina's better at which part?
All of travel. Like Ellie was going to like all of travel.
Yeah, she's
because I mean, Ellie was going to leave with a bunch of guns.
Yeah,
and like no medical supplies, and didn't know where she was going.
Right.
Like Dina came in with the map and said, I need you to pack this. I need you to pack this. I need you to pack this. When they were on the horses, Dina was like, we need to find some cover. It's going to rain. And then in this episode, when Ellie was ready to barrel into WLF headquarters, Dina was like, maybe we don't. So I do think, but like, I would classify it more as like an Ellie, much like Joel, is stubborn and headstrong for sure. Like she is going to just go into a situation oftentimes without thinking. And Dina, I think, is not no stranger to danger. I don't think that she gives off nervous energy, but she does give off a let's be a little bit more prepared.
Well, I think she's prepared, but once we'll get into the sixth section here, though, let's talk about it. We move into the action portion of this as we see them walk into this area, and as you mentioned, Michael, we see these WLF people hanging up on the hooks, disemboweled. I love that. Ellie says, "Oh, it was neither one. It was none of these people. It was none of these people who attacked."
Yes,
it was an interesting moment. But then we hear the WLF soldiers come in. They try to hide away from them. Eventually, they realize that the soldiers realize that they're in there. Go after them. Ellie attacks one of them from behind, and Dina has to shoot one to save them. And they shoot out the window and jump out the window. Get chased into this little area, and then we see this massive action scene with them trying to avoid them and the soldiers trying to avoid these infected coming through here. We see them on top of the train. We see them battling through the train, and then we see Ellie get bit, and Dina is going to kill her. Dina is going to shoot her, and then Ellie convinces her to let her sleep, and that when she wakes up, or if she turns at any point, you can kill her. She doesn't turn, and in that moment is when Ellie slowly reveals that, or Dina, sorry, slowly reveals that she's pregnant, and they consummate their affection for each other in a very lovely scene, and they end up just in a place where connecting. That's what I'll say. I mean,
they consummate. Yeah, they get it on.
Pants are coming off. I'm saying
pants are coming off. So the entire, like, them going in to the WLF, the news headquarters, the whole scene was great. Like I said, as soon as they're sneaking in, like they crawling through the window, seeing the body with the arrows in it, going in further, like this is, and I don't usually, when you say this felt like a video game, we talked about this in season 1. I think even with the first episode of season 1, where sometimes you go, oh, that felt like a video game. It's sort of an insult. But with The Last of Us, anytime they go into this mode where it feels like a video game, I get really excited because they've taken what any gamer experiences when you're playing the game, and they've elevated it to they've ratcheted everything up and done it right. So when you're in that newsroom and you hear the soldiers coming and they look around and they realize they're fucked, like there's nowhere to go, and they hide. And then everyone's fanning out and they're like, fan out, we're going to see if anybody's here. And they are hiding and they're slowly moving around from here to here. Like if you've ever played a stealth mission in a video game, you're like, oh, I am feeling this. Like I am feeling what is happening here. And I was truly, I think that because it was shot, even in that way where you have like the desk and these things here, and there's some crates over there, and can I move from here to here while they're turned that way so they don't see me? And like everything that was happening was so gamified, but in a really elevated way. I was on the edge of my seat. And then even when Ellie goes upstairs and the guy comes in, even the way she goes up and gets him in the neck, like that's the way you do a takedown in the game. And then her takedown failed. And then Dina came in and shot him. So like the entire sequence, like it was tense. It was fun with the bodies hanging there. It was disturbing. And I was like, okay, this is great. This is some action. And then when they went into the train station and crawled in there, like I love that the WLF people kind of got there instantly. And we just ratcheted this action up. And so you're sort of back in the same situation again, you're like, they're going to find us.
Right.
And then adding in that element of the infected. And I loved, again, when you play the game and you can hear the infected and you can sort of vibe out how many there are, but Dina kind of like closing her eyes again, showing that Dina is no stranger to this shit. When she closes her eyes and is listening and she's like, there's 1, 2, 3, and it's getting worse and worse. And you're like, oh no, there's 5 of them. This could get bad. And then 300 of them come running in. Like, it was just horrible. And then from that point on, it was just pure adrenaline. Like, I was like, this is some intense shit. Like and I think, you know, we've talked about this with Walking Dead. We've talked about this with zombie movies in general, like any kind of zombie story, infected story, whatever. One of the challenges is, what can I do that we haven't done before? What can I do that we haven't seen? And just the overturned train in the ruins of the train station, and the way, like, in the first car, the windows were on the top and the bottom, so they were just pounding on the metal walls. But then but then when you go through that sort of rubbery part that connects the trains, and they're pressing in on it and they're squeezing through it, and then they're coming in through the windows, like, they just kept going and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, you know, you run up the stairs and, you know, we all knew this was going to happen eventually, but then, you know, the way it happened, like with Dina, Ellie makes it through the turnstile. Dina can't make it, and Ellie just throws her arm there. And that's different from the game, because in the game you get infected. It's through the air, it's through spores. Whereas that they didn't do that with the show, so that we didn't have to have people wearing gas masks all the time and a bunch of stuff. But in the game, it's Ellie's gas mask that gets broken, and that's what Dina's like, oh fuck. So they changed it to actually getting that bite, which I think is like way more intense to see visually,
more personal.
And then, yeah, like, Dina's reaction is 100% what anyone's reaction would be. And Ellie's insistence that she's going to be fine is what a lot of people say in a zombie movie when they are not going to be fine. So it was like, I love that they played the entire sequence out in a very logical way. It's not like, if they had done, there's a lesser show here where Ellie would say, you've got to believe me. And she'd be like, I do believe you. Dina's not playing that. Ellie's like, I'm going to sleep here, and if I turn, you can shoot me. And I did love when Ellie woke up, because I was like, knowing how I snore, I know that if that had been me, I would have been shot dead before I woke up. Like, I would have been like, and so we're like, nope, he's a zombie. Done. Out. He's dead.
Kill it. Kill it.
Anyone who has stayed in a hotel room with me ever knows that I'm not making it out of that nap.
That's true.
But like, and I just loved even the way they shot it, that like Dina was in the dark. Like, you couldn't see Dina's face. It was just the gun and the flashlight. And it was just like, she was removed from this. Like, she had already detached herself from Ellie, because she was sure that Ellie was going to turn and she was going to have to shoot her. And then when Ellie kind of holds out the arm and is like, see, she kind of puts it down. She brings up the lantern and she steps into the light, sort of like coming back to reconnect. And now that she knows this secret about Ellie and that Ellie's going to survive, just comes out with, I'm pregnant. And I do, kind of to what you were saying earlier, in a show where people are constantly finding the divisions between themselves. These two come together and both reveal the secret, the big secret that both of them have been carrying. And in that moment, kind of in a very thematic, sort of poetic way, once those secrets are revealed and nothing is standing between them, they fuck.
That's
what you do.
That's exactly right. And then afterwards, I mean, having Dina say, you know, when I was growing up, I liked boys and girls, and my mom was like, no, you only like boys. That's, you know, very Latino upbringing, you know. It's and then him saying, and then her saying, you know, that the thing with Jesse, it just didn't work because I knew he wasn't the one. So we know clearly that she is in love with Ellie, and the idea of talking about them having a child together, it's such an interesting situation. Michael, you got what you wanted, a throuple here. And so we have 3 people raising a baby, which we'll be curious to see once Jesse finds out, because I don't really trust Jesse. And once Jesse finds out, I wonder.
He's Captain Wyoming.
I know, but I'm just saying, I don't know if I trust Jesse as much. And so we'll see how Jesse reacts to all of this newfound parenthood situation. But I also wonder how this is going to affect Ellie, right? Because Ellie now being a parent, mentally is going to be a whole nother ball game once the confrontation comes up with Abby. Is her connection to this burgeoning child, because I don't know the game, if Dina and the child, if they survive, is that going to affect her when she finally confronts Abby? And let me just say this real quickly. If you're going to have a really explosive first 2 episodes of a season and then create something that's going to keep us away from getting that revenge, what they've done here to construct the wolves and the Seraphites and that battle, I think is a very smart move. And it's going to keep our interest in this. You had to have a very powerful storyline to distract us. And then we're going to get back on the road towards Abby, I imagine. Yeah. So this is a smart move in the way it's constructed. But yes, I agree with you. Them coming together and the action sequences were amazing. And like you said, the leveling up was so brilliant the way it was done. And it's also their relationship and how they're communicating with each other, how they're helping each other, saving each other. And we've seen this in numerous movies and TV shows. It's usually what we've known for decades is it's a man and a woman escaping a situation and then consummating their feelings for each other because they are so heightened from a life and death situation. Here we go again in this, but this time it's two young women having this connection. So
but I think, you know what, I mean, I think they're both doing such an amazing job because I think that their relationship feels like I've been feeling Ellie's crush on Dina since episode 1.
And apparently Dina has too, which she tells her.
And Dina having the crush, but then not fully saying it and sort of talking around it. And like, well, I like you, any queer person who ever grew up in the closet where they had a crush on one of their friends and was always waiting for that little hint of a breadcrumb, like felt those scenes. And so then when you get to this and everything is sort of consummated and they have this lovely coming together and then have this lovely conversation about, I thought when you got bit that all the things that I was imagining about us raising a kid together was never going to happen. And then Ellie being like, wow, I'm a dad. Like, this is awesome. Like, just all of it was so sweet in the midst of the most fucked up situation in the world. Like, they are in the middle of the worst possible place. And what I love about the show is that it's the worst possible place because of humanity, not because of I mean, I don't want to be around the infected either, but what they're dealing with right now between the Seraphites and the WLF is like way more pressing than avoiding the infected at the moment.
Yes, because the affected are single-minded, right? It's that you can at least plan for. And yes, of course, they're adapting as we see in this season. They're figuring out how to stalk all these things, you know. And if you saw the preview for the next episode, I think what Michael referenced is going to start happening, which is going to add a whole nother level to the danger here. But with human beings, they're much more conniving, manipulative, terrible, but also capable of love and caring and support and all of that, of course, in this world. But that's the thing that's always great about these zombie or infected type of franchises is that you always realize the humans are much more dangerous than the infected thing that they're battling, but in much more insidious ways, you know?
Well, and what's interesting is really you could draw the conclusion that, you know, as a species, the infected all work together.
That's true, right?
Like, there's the infected move as one. The infected work as one giant group that are all working in sync and they're all working in unison. Humanity is the one that can't kind of get their shit together sometimes.
Yes, 100%. Yes, because ego, you know, issues get involved, personal issues get involved. You're 100% right on that. Well, Michael, you've played the game, so I hesitate to ask you this question, but where do you think we're going forward?
We're off the reservation. I got busy with my new job, and then the Indiana Jones game came out on the PS5, and I have been lax in my Last of Us sing duties. So, but I do think that I'm interested to see what the back half of the season is. I'm interested to see where we start to dive into the Abby story. I'm relatively sure I don't know if there's going to be like some Joel flashbacks interspersed or if they're going to hit us with a wallop of an episode where we all of a sudden just get the Joel flashback episode and we all cry our faces off.
Right.
I kind of think that's what they're going to do. But yeah, I think we are definitely going to get a little bit more on the Joel and Ellie relationship and things that happen that we didn't see from when we came into the story. But it's just like, this is one of those shows, and Andor is another one. There's a lot of shows that we review on this channel where I go in with the highest of hopes, and then I sometimes come out with not the best of feelings. Middle of Daredevil Born Again, I'm looking at you. And with both Last of Us and with Andor, it's just amazing and joyous to watch a show where you're like, I'm in good hands. Take me wherever you want. Like, whatever you're going to do, I know that this is going to be satisfying.
Yeah. And just like Andor, after this week's episodes, we have 3 episodes left of Last of Us and 3 episodes left of Andor season 2, which will be next week. So it's an interesting situation to look at things. Of course, this goes till May 25th, but there's only 3 episodes left in Last of Us because that's the end of the second season, and then we'll move into the 3rd season at some point, I imagine. So I think this is a good episode to have here, right smack dab in the middle of the season. We're still processing the death of Joel, as Ellie said, talking about very sweetly how she, he taught her, and how it's one of those things that she carries on from him, and Dina receives that so well. But then seeing their growing relationship and the strength that they have in their feelings for each other, how is that going to play itself out as they come in contact with the wolves? What is the battle going to be there? And I wonder how Hanrahan takes that relationship and that situation, as well as Isaac. So a lot of curious things to come for sure in the next 3 episodes as we wrap up the season. All right, well, that's our spoiler review for episode 4 here, day 1 of season 2 of The Last of Us. Michael, what do we have to tell our fine folks who are listening and watching?
Well, you fine folks, if you would like to follow us, you can do so on Twitter at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, you can do so at the Rocha Says. If you would like to follow me, you can do so at MKToon. And after you do all that following, you can smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, check out all the amazing content he has got there. Leave your comments below. What did you think of this episode? Where do you think things are going? If you played the game, don't spoil it for everybody else, but you can leave vague hints, because vague hints are always exciting for nerds. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
That's very well done. Yes, please don't post spoilers. Some of you posted that Dina was pregnant last week, and I had to delete your comments. So I will delete your comments if you post spoilers, or even if you laughingly try to post spoilers. I don't know what's real and what isn't, so I'll just delete it. So I'm just letting you know now that's exactly what I'm going to do. So you can waste your time doing it, but it won't be up there too long. So, but yes, thank you to everyone else who is having these awesome good faith discussions down there in the comment section, or who are tweeting at us their thoughts on it. We appreciate it madly. And for my partner, Mike Vogel, we are out of here. Thanks so much for watching this spoiler review of The Last of Us here on the
Geek Buddies.